Stand to salute the flag, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I have just a couple of announcements. Just again, Abington Cleanup Day is April 20th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Volunteers are needed. Everyone is welcome and encouraged to join our neighbors, family, and friends to make a difference by cleaning up our local environment. Sign up online for a particular location or come to the Abington Police Station on Saturday and check in and pick up rakes, leaf bags, trash bags, etc. More information is available at www.abingtonsage.com. Also that same day, free of charge at the police station. Textile drop-off for new or old, clean or not, clothes, stuffed animals, socks, towels, rags, curtains, and an e-waste drop-off. Anything with a plug. At Sullivan Tire is a tire drop-off. The tires cannot have rims. And there is no hazardous waste taken on the April 20th Abington Cleanup Day. And then Sharon White, the health inspector, asked me to announce that the rabies clinic will be held at 10 o'clock a.m. on April 13th. It's running from 10 o'clock a.m. until 12 o'clock p.m. at the side entrance of the town hall. Vaccinations for cats and dogs are $10. Dog licenses for 2013 can be obtained at the same time. Does anybody else have any announcements? John, any announcements?
No announcements.
Okay. Under public appointments at 6:30 p.m., we have an application to obtain a new all-alcohol common victular license at 30 Central Street. This is a public hearing, Town of Abington, public hearing. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 8th, 2013 at 6:30 p.m. in the Carter Hearing Room, Town Hall, 500 Glenevich Way, on the application of Lisa Mastrangelo and Suzanne Burns, manager, to obtain a new all-alcohol common victular license, 30 Central Street. R. Andrew Burbine, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to recuse myself. I'm a member of the FWs.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
No license.
Good evening, Mr. Attorney Whiting. How are you?
George Whiting, 100 Colonel Hunt Drive, for petitioner Lisa Mastrangelo, doing business as Emerald Hall, 30 Central Street in Abington. Lisa has now purchased the building, I'm happy to tell you, and she's had a number of functions there, some of which may have been attended by you. She has a number of reservations for future dates and so forth, for which she would be seeking a one-day all-alcohol license for a few dates in the future. I have that in writing here that I'd like to submit. But in the meantime, just to indicate, we had been before this board some time ago, and I want to thank Mr. Donovan for bringing to my attention the fact that rather than transferring the liquor license, we were seeking a new liquor license. And somewhere along the way, there was a genuine misunderstanding between the board, the Alcohol Beverage Commission, and your assistant town manager, who assisted me I'm most grateful for her assistance in preparing the application. But somewhere or another, we missed the mark in between. And so we're back here again today for this public hearing in order to obtain an all-alcohol license, a new license, with your approval, and applying to the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission for same. As per the understanding, I have the approval of the dram shop consultants of Natick, whereby all of the employees, including the applicant and her manager-to-be, have graduated from the Tipping Academy. And again, I have that, and Lisa has brought the certificate of liability insurance, which is necessary, it's my understanding, for her coverage, appropriate coverage for the building. We seek your approval for that, obtaining the new license. The application will go in as soon as Lisa has completed the number of different engagements that she has, and the last date for that would be April 21st. Your thoughts would be welcomed, and then at the conclusion, if all goes well, I'd like to present the request for those one-day licenses. In the meantime, I could pass the insurance binder and the tipping approval
Should hand
to
those off to the town manager.
the town manager.
Does anybody have any questions?
No,
Ken?
doesn't the town have a limit on the amount of licenses we have? What is this? I don't understand how that works.
I think it's 30 a year.
He's talking about the all-alcohol
Yeah.
permanent license.
Oh,
There's one available.
There's one available.
Well, there is one available.
I hope so.
This is the last one, actually.
Wait a second.
Did they do the others?
These are people that are going to be, that are tip certified, they're going to be working for you.
Yes, sir.
And all the abutters have been notified and?
Yes, we have, Nancy has a list of all the people that we've notified, and also has the clipping from the
Yeah, we have the clipping here,
newspaper.
yeah.
Oh, you have that, fine.
Tom?
I just have a question. With the VW formerly held the license, will that now decease, or will become?
Yes, it was a club license, and that license is no longer valid. I think they've actually surrendered it.
They did.
Okay.
At the closing, they had
You can
to.
only have one license at an address. You can't have two separate licenses.
We basically approved a license last time, it's just some
It just
snafu.
wasn't
We
a
It wasn't
approved
the
it as a
correct.
transfer, and
Right.
it's actually a new license. I thought we had,
We
I
did.
thought we had talked about it being a new license, and then it was,
Yeah,
the,
but the bottom line is you're gonna run the same operation that you presented to us a couple of months ago.
Exactly the
Right.
same, and the ABC actually had already done all their due diligence on us, and it was all, everything was fine, except for one little box on that front page was the wrong box.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Any comments from the public? Because this is a public hearing? No? Okay, so I'll bring it back to the board. Do we have a motion to
I'll-
close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
I
Opposed? The hearing is closed.
move we grant the license as based on the application.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second. Tom, any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
gentlemen.
Chairman,
Sign these.
would I be well advised to hand you the request for the 4 dates for the one-day license?
How does that work, Jim? Now?
you could vote that separately, but you'd have to vote each date individually. Let me make a copy of this.
Just tell us what they have.
Why don't you tell us what the dates are, and then,
Yeah.
The 13th, April 13th, 14th, 20th, 21st.
okay, so we should.
I'll make a motion, we approve those dates for a one-day all-alcoholic
Much
license.
appreciated, gentlemen.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tom?
Discussion, just, what are these for?
Function.
It
Functions.
is one wedding on this Saturday night, and a wedding on Sunday. And then the following weekend, it's a small function, I think 50 people. I don't know the exact, I can give you the exact function.
My question would be, in the future, in May, I'm assuming this will continue. Will they have
Will
to
not
bring this
continue.
back to the board each and every time? they
No,
do
the
it?
day after this final function that we're seeking
Oh, I see.
one-day
Okay,
license
yeah,
for, the application will go in, and we feel that by the time the next function
Right.
comes up, the license will be in place, but thank you for asking.
Okay, any further discussion on Kevin's motion to approve those one-day licenses, April 13th, April 14th, April 20th, and April 21st? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay.
Good luck, once again.
Yes.
Again, you're cordially
Thank you very
invited to,
Second
My
time's
open
a
house that I'm
charm.
almost gonna have pretty soon.
Well, we were at the trivia night
Signing.
a couple of weeks ago, and it looks nice. You've
I
done
sent
some
it
nice
to
work
him.
there. so.
We just did the Robertson dance floor this week. that
Oh,
just
good.
passed, so it looks really nice.
Great.
look
Good
like
luck
a
with it.
brand-new venue very soon. Thank you again, gentlemen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Second public appointment, 6:35
Thank you.
PM. Application for an entertainment license and common victular license at 1437 Bedford Street. Are the applicants here?
Do you want a copy of it?
Evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Identify yourselves, please.
Patrick Tarmy, I'm the owner, and this is my partner, Kevin.
Kevin Figueredo.
Is it Kevin?
Kevin Figueredo, yes.
Figueredo, okay. Just give us a little synopsis of what this is all about.
Absolutely. We have an existing business in Abington. We've been operating since November. Was our soft opening. December was our hard opening. We operate an indoor extreme obstacle course for ages 12 plus. We also operate an indoor airsoft arena, which is essentially paintball without the paint indoors. Another teenage event. We've been getting a lot of requests from customers to stay open later on Fridays and Saturdays and open sort of a high school dance scenario in our building. So that's what we're applying for tonight, is an entertainment license, so that we may have dancing patrons, also for an amplified music system inside the business. That will be open separately from the other two events inside the business. So there will be dancing, but there will not be any engagement in the obstacle course activities. It will not be any engagement in the airsoft activities while the dancing is going on.
And you're looking for hours of operation Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until 2 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 2 a.m.?
Yes, sir. We've our hours that we're currently looking at are 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. We had put on the application to give us a little extra leeway on the closing.
What are your hours of operation now, Patrick?
Monday through Thursday, we're open 3 to 9. Friday, we're open 11 to 11. Saturday, 11 to 11. And Sunday, 11 to 9.
Thanks. Questions? Tom?
Yeah, just what age group would you be targeting here? Would there be any sort of ID checking for these teenage dancers?
The age is 21 and under, so we don't allow anybody over the age of 21 to participate, and we don't let anybody younger than the age of 15 to participate.
And that's for checking IDs as they come through the door?
There are obviously under 21, it's 6.5 dozen of the other. If someone has an ID available to them, if they're 16 plus, there's a good chance they have an ID. 15, if they're in high school, they can present us a high school identification. If they look to be older than 21, we do request an ID, and if they're unable to present it, then we use discretion at the door whether or not to let that person in.
Kevin?
If I could, we had the chance to chat before the meeting, and I told you of my concerns in terms of, I had asked the fire chief for a report as to how many times the ambulance has been up there, and since November, he reported back the ambulance has been up there 10 times. I guess my concern, obviously, is the type of operation and what would cause the ambulance to get up there. Could you further elaborate on that for me, please?
Absolutely. The extreme obstacle course has been the source of the any injuries at the business. It is an extreme event, and our age groups who have been injured are typically older persons, usually 25 and above. It is obviously a very extreme obstacle course. They have fall heights ranging from 10 to 6 to 10 feet. As injuries had occurred when we first opened in November and December, we implemented new safety strategies that included additional padding. We rearranged obstacles. We implemented a safety course before anybody attempts the obstacle course now, so that they have a chance to learn before they go on all the ways to stay safe. And since we've been open, we've seen significantly less number of injuries compared to the days that we've been open, as opposed to when we first opened. The last 60, 90 days, we've been having very few incidents, ranging from a bloody nose, ranging from a sprained ankle, in which case parents drop their children off. Even if it's a sprained ankle, we always call the ambulance as a precautionary measure. If their parents aren't available to make that decision, we always call the ambulance and the fire department just to ensure their safety and that nothing has happened more significant than it looks. But like I said, the obstacle course will be closed and airsoft will be closed during dance nights.
I think one of the concerns that the building inspector had, I don't know if you've talked to him at all?
Yes, sir.
Is that you would not be able to confine the area. In my opinion, the 9,930 square foot airsoft course can't effectively be supervised So is that
Yep.
something that you've addressed?
I addressed that this afternoon with the building inspector, and what we've done is we've installed door locks going to the airsoft so that there can be no access to the 10,000 square foot area or so that airsoft occupies. And we've also put a safety procedure in place where every 15 minutes there will be a manager or a supervisor that will walk that airsoft area to ensure that nobody has slipped back there without our notice. We
Thanks.
also have put in motion detecting lights so that if someone goes back there, the lights, all the house lights, all the fluorescent lights automatically come on as a big alert.
Any other questions? Mike?
How many, I'm going to use the word teenagers or young adults.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to use the word teenagers. Everybody would be under 21, and it was from 16 to 21 years old. And how many would you allow in? What's the occupancy?
Our occupancy capacity, including staff, is 120.
120?
And that is our building. If we had a larger number of bathrooms, we'd be allowed up to 907. We have a very large building. So we've agreed to the town to keep our occupancy down to 120, and that's based on the number of bathrooms that we have. And it also keeps it so it's not crowded and so that there's plenty of space for those 120 people.
Have you run operations like this elsewhere, or is this the first time you've done something like this?
This is my first operation of this sort.
How about underage dances? Have you done operations like that?
I have 5 years in security for underage dances. I was a bounty hunter in Florida. I was also contracted by a Blackwater competitor as an executive protection agent. So I have a lot of security experience. I have a lot of experience in clubs, over 21 clubs and under 21 clubs in Florida and Texas that I've been managed at, that I've been taken various safety courses on how to identify people that are intoxicated, how to identify possible safety threats, and how to properly keep staff looped through the facility so that we minimize any possibility of an occurrence.
It says here, 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. Why would you start dancing at 10 a.m.?
I may have misunderstood what to put on the application. I put on the application the time that we would be, that's the time our staff enters the building in the morning is 10 a.m. We open the doors to the public at 11. So the obstacle course and the airsoft is open from 10 until around 8:30, in which we close it all down, and then we start letting people come in for dancing activities at 9 p.m.
9 p.m. I'm going to express an opinion that I would like to get a little more information. We have dances in our schools just like they do in other schools. And it's always, there's an awful lot of good kids, but there's some kids that just don't make good decisions. And it's always a concern when we have these dances, not just in our schools, but at all schools, homecomings or whatever, that kids show up under the influence. And it seems to be, not just here, but everywhere. And I have a lot of reservations. I know, a lot of times these kids are looking for something good and constructive to do, and there certainly there's nothing wrong with dancing, but I think that by trying to provide this to, kids at that bracket, you're going to invite a lot of kids that are going to either be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And I would like to talk to the police chief and maybe even get the opinion of the superintendent of schools before I made a decision on this. But I have serious reservations as to the kind of trouble that could show up at your door. And I know you've expressed yourself and stuff like this, but I mean, I throughout the years, not every year, but there's occasions for our dances where they're heavily chaperoned, they're warned before time, and there is an element in our society that just shows up, under the influence. It just seems to be the thing to do. So I don't know by doing this if you're, I just think it's problematic in my view, but that's just my opinion.
Absolutely, and I have addressed those concerns internally, and some of the things we were going to present to the board as precautionary measures, and this is things that we've kind of played with as far as we know that people are going to show up possibly under the influence. We know that kids are going to make bad decisions, and our goal is to send everybody home safe and to make sure everybody has a good time and stay safe. And a few ways that we can prevent that are at-the-door breathalyzers. if somebody seems under the influence, we do own a few simple, disposable breathalyzers. I will be training all of our security staff to detect people who are under the influence, as well as watching them in general. We can issue a breathalyzer test to anybody coming in the door. We can also issue a breathalyzer test to anybody in a vehicle that's leaving the premises. We have addressed that issue, and it's definitely a #1 concern of mine. I have a family member who was killed in a drunk driving accident, so it's absolutely top priority for myself. And we will be taking steps to not just watch out for it, but to prevent it indefinitely. And that would be being as active as we possibly can in the crowd, watching the crowd, making sure we have adequate security. We prevent about 1 security officer for every 20 kids, so that we don't have we have a decent amount of people watching the kids at any given time. And we watch who has keys, watch who comes in the door, how they're acting, how they're behaving, and if that breathalyzer is required, we have no problem giving it to them and no problem telling them that it's simply not allowed. And we want everybody to stay safe and go home safe.
I had one question. Have you talked to the police chief about this at all?
I have not spoken with the police chief.
Because as part of his report back to us, he said he had some concerns and that he'd like to investigate further before we go forward. I emailed him today. He said he was still investigating. I don't know if have you talked to him, John, at all?
No, he's not, he hasn't completed his review at this point. He should be contacting you if he needs additional information. I have some concerns about this, but I think that some of them are solvable. There's obviously a need for workers' compensation. I don't know if that is. You have, okay. The second issue deals with this issue of public safety, which I think Selectman Franey has raised, and I think that any license that's granted to this premise for entertainment purposes should require, at the discretion of the police chief, at least a detail officer on site, because I think while you may have trained staff that are obviously working the inside of the building and the outside of the building, the basic issue is if there is a disturbance or if there is an issue, you don't have any arrest powers at all. That rests with the police department. And so I would think that, that would be something that would be very important. And probably the third and really the more important aspect of this too is the issue of the number of times the ambulance has been called to the premise. And I think that it's a drain on our resources to have that many calls to a particular location. What I would recommend in some entertainment licenses that I'm familiar with have these requirements, not only for a detail officer for these types of venues, but also an EMT or a medical person paid for by you that is on site, and they make the determination as to whether or not the ambulance needs to be called. So if you have an ankle issue or a larger concern, the medical person on staff that works for your venue would be able to make that determination as to whether or not an ambulance was needed or not. So I think that those types of issues need to be addressed in a more formalized plan from my perspective. But of course, the chief, I would reserve all public safety concerns to the chief.
Absolutely. And obviously the incidents that occurred that required the ambulance, all those obstacles and all those parts of the business will be shut down for this purpose. We have held a number of, 3 dances to date before we realized that it was gaining popularity and then realizing that there was a license that was required for it. We haven't had any issues, not a single fight, not a single scuffle, no issues reported to me by the police department, which I've inquired about as far as people being pulled over outside of the facility or anything like that. So I would be asked that we'd be at least given the chance to continue a clean record as we have to this point. And if you would require in the immediate future for the next month or so, or whatever you determine is appropriate, to have a detailed officer there or have an EMT. We do have trained pro rescuers there. I'm a pro rescuer. We always have a pro rescuer on staff. But I would not be opposed to having an EMT or having a police detail there for whatever time you deem necessary until we can prove that we are able to, maintain it safely on our own. Unless it's determined that we need to keep that detail there permanently, then that's something that I'm also open to. But until this point, at least we've had a good safety record for the first month that we tried this, and I'd be asked that we give that chance to continue that safety record.
How do you publicize the dances?
Facebook.
Facebook. Ken?
A couple things. I came in here with the mindset, no. But you're saying all the right things, and you seem to be answering all the questions. And I think that the obstacle course EMT issue is a separate issue from what we're deciding tonight. We're deciding about the dances. And my suggestion is the same as what John recommended, is that maybe we hire, I'm gonna wait till the police chief reports back anyways, but my suggestion would be to hire a detail for like a 6-month trial basis. And then maybe if things work out, that would be my suggestion. So I think we should wait for the police chief. But I do have a question. Now, you've had some dances there already, correct?
That's correct. We've had smaller informal dances at the beginning, where we've had 30 to 50 kids show up the first two, and then we had about 3 weeks ago, we had a Friday, we had 116 kids show up. At that point, we realized it's very popular. We spoke with the building inspector at that point. I revisited with deputy chief of the fire department and realized that there was a license that we needed to acquire if we wanted to continue doing this. So we shut down until this point, where we're still shut down for the dances. We've made renovation improvements and as such, but obviously waiting for the approval from the town before we continue.
My question is, did you learn anything from those dances? Did you have any issues that you may have learned things, that anything arise from them?
A few of the things that arose were bathrooms. We want to post somebody more regularly through the bathrooms because the kids tend to make a mess in there. Someone stole the handle to one of the toilets one night, so that became a problem for the rest of the night. And more or less posting somebody outside so we don't have a lot of trash issues out there. But we were very surprised at the crowd that showed up. We play music and we create an atmosphere that's a classier atmosphere, a more responsible atmosphere, a happier atmosphere, if you will. So we really attract kids that are, they have a little bit more responsibility, and we can hope to continue to do that by the music that we play, by the venue that we have for them, and simply by giving them a clean, safe place to go, because the reality of it is kids are going to go somewhere on Friday night, and they're going to go somewhere on Saturday night, whether we exist or not. But we can provide them a safe place to do it and a responsible place to do it. I think that we continue to be an asset to the town because we've obviously generated a lot of public interest in it. A lot of kids are coming down, and it definitely can be a positive thing for the town of Abington and the surrounding communities.
I would imagine you charge a cover charge. Is that?
Yes, sir.
How much is the cover charge?
Right now, it's $10.
Do you provide food also?
We provide drinks. We have water, Gatorade, energy drinks available. We have
Is that for sale, or is that given away, or is that?
No, that's for sale.
For sale also?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have any kind of food at all on premise?
Actually, I think we have, during the day, we have catering by Gabriella's. We don't prepare any food in-house. Anything that people want to order, they order a pizza through us through Gabriella's. They place the order with our staff places the order with Gabriella's. Gabriella's delivers it to them.
My only other concern was just what we touched upon is if it becomes popular and then you have a limit of 120, you're going to have people showing up and they're going to be in the parking lot. So that's my main reason for maybe having an officer there, because the park, it sounds like you have security staff inside. You're going to have 6 people if you have 120, but outside is my concern because people will mill about before and after. So that's just my 2 cents worth.
Absolutely. One of the things that we've done that we learned on the bigger night that we had, any kids that were in the parking lot or in vehicles that were not coming in, we had somebody actively go up to that vehicle, make sure there was no alcohol that in sight as they could see, and they just asked them, are you guys waiting for somebody? What are you doing here? Making sure that they weren't, doing anything illegal in the vehicle prior to coming into our business. So we were very active with that.
Anybody else? My thought is, I'd like to hear what the police chief has to say, and I'd like for you guys to sit down with the police chief and maybe talk to him and maybe allay some of his concerns, whatever they are. And maybe we can come back
Would
at
you
our
like,
next meeting.
we can get him to write a report to the board.
Yeah. I don't know, how does everybody else feel about that?
I absolutely agree with that.
Makes sense.
We have a meeting in 2 weeks. So we could postpone it until that point in time, give you some time to sit with him and for the chief to put together a report for us also.
Just another thing, if you're gonna, if it does go to an EMT, I think we should involve the fire chief, because we just, we should get his opinion on whether the men would wanna work that shift, not work that shift. Same with the police officers too, but yeah, definitely have an opinion from the chief.
Does
So
that
you
sound
want
like a
the, want
reasonable?
the fire chief involved as well?
Well, I think we mentioned.
Public safety, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
I think we mentioned EMT. I think if we're gonna involve the fire department, we should speak with the chief and tell him what, what that might or might not do, so.
Well, I think that's a separate issue as far as what we're discussing tonight, because the club's not even gonna be open with all the injuries. You know what I'm
These are
saying?
just the- yeah.
This is just for the
Okay, I
dance.
get what you're saying, yeah.
Now, can I ask a question? Do you have dances publicized, planned, ready to go in the next couple weeks?
Obviously, shutting down for the past 2 weeks has significantly hurt our revenue. We do have one we've gotten a lot of popularity for this coming Friday, in anticipation that we wouldn't have any problems obtaining the license with the board because we haven't had any problems there yet.
Has it been advertised?
Yes, sir. We did advertise it. I would absolutely fill your obligation before Friday to sit down with the police chief. If there's any issue that we cannot resolve with the police chief, I'll happily call it off. I'll commit to having a police detail there this Friday. It's definitely if we went 2 more weeks, it would definitely hurt our business a lot. With the summer coming, kids are a lot more outdoors. It's slowed down in the past 30 days. We're a brand new business. It's day to day, week to week, month to month. And we've spent a lot of money the last week and the last 2 weeks since we've been waiting to come in front of the board on renovations, making things nicer for the kids. We made a concession stand 3 times the size. We bought a whole lot more lights. We brought more security in. Obviously paid to have them, trained and interviewed. It would definitely be very detrimental to my business to not be able to operate.
I understand that, but.
But I'll definitely sit down and fulfill that obligation with the police chief prior to Friday, and if he has a concern and he says no, I will absolutely, regardless of issuance of the license, not run on Friday if he feels uncomfortable with it.
Well, I feel uncomfortable not having the chief's opinion, to be honest with you. And I know you've advertised it, but you did that kind of at your own risk, knowing
course.
that we haven't approved the license, so.
Of course.
My personal opinion is I'd like to wait to hear from the chief, and that's a 2-week period, and I understand that you have a dance hopefully scheduled for this week, but.
I appreciate that, obviously, and I wish there was something else we could, a solution we can come to, only because we haven't had any of those problems, and we are actively addressing any issues that
No,
arise.
and I think you've done a very good job in presenting to us, your plan and all, but I think we still need to, my opinion, we need the public safety input, and we don't have that yet, so.
Do you think that committing to a detail at least for the next 2 weeks, or a double detail for the next 2 weeks to ensure public safety would be sufficient?
I don't know how you could do that without the license, that's the only problem. If we either issue the license or we don't, and if we issue it, then.
It would be up to us not to do the dance in the event that the police.
Can you do 1-day licenses for this?
Well, I was gonna say, is you could probably do a 30-day license or a 15-day license, if you so desire. But usually, entertainment licenses run year to year.
If we did do a 15-day license, that could be very beneficial, and we could still come before the board in 2 weeks with the reports and with any incidents or with the results of the next 2 weeks of dances, and at least give you a better understanding of what's going on there, and maybe more to go off of to issue a permanent license.
I know you guys are shaking your heads, but I mean, I would think that if these folks meet with the police chief and the police chief says yes or no, whatever he requires, I would not have a problem with that. And then they still come before us in 2 weeks. So, I mean, I will make that in a form of motion, whatever the police chief requires, and if you folks agree to that, I would be in favor of, delay, temporary license, I guess, so to speak.
A temporary 15-day license contingent on the police chief.
On the police chief agreeing to, and you doing whatever the police chief requires.
Absolutely.
I'll second for discussion purposes.
Okay.
And then after that, I would like the police chief to come back to us at our next meeting, along with you folks, and they will have a first-hand view of any concerns that they might have and that you might have.
Discussion?
I think it's a compromise, solution. I do kind of dial into the point that there hasn't been any issues at this point. And again, I think public safety, the police chief, if he has some concerns, it doesn't, go forward. And I think we reserve our right that if there are some concerns or issues, then, at the next meeting, these guys could be back to discuss them and potentially move forward with a full-blown year license.
One thing I would note too, that these gentlemen, I've never met them before, but I went on, the internet's a good thing and a bad thing. I've learned a lot. If you look at Yelp, hasn't been some positive reviews because of the injuries, but that has subsided because I think they've taken the posture that we've got to improve safety there. And that's a different issue too, because, that's the obstacle course, and we'll discuss that at another point if there's an issue. But I think that these two gentlemen are doing their due diligence, and they're saying all the right things, and hopefully 2 weeks from now, they will have done the right thing.
Well, if that's the case, if it's going to be a temporary license, and I don't think it's a bad compromise, I agree with Tom, but as far as the hours go, I'm not looking at 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. 7 days a week. I don't think that's something that we ought to be doing. If you have a couple of dances or a few dances that are already scheduled, I don't have a
Correct.
problem with those going forward, but I don't think you should be scheduling any more at this point.
Correct. I could
Yeah.
give you those dates and those, or the days and the times if you'd like.
What are those?
Friday and Saturday, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Both, which dates? What are
This
the-
coming Friday, this coming Saturday is the advertised, and then the following Friday, the following Saturday, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. would be the
9
full-
p.m. through 1 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
Isn't there I'm sorry, and I agree that you guys are saying all the right things, but I'm kind of stuck in the middle. Isn't there a driving restriction on kids like under 18, I think it is?
I'm sorry, what
A
type?
driving restriction as far as they can't drive after midnight or drive after, I forget.
That's if they have a permit. If
If
it's
they have a full license, they can't
if
drive.
they have a full license, they can, I think there's a 6-month requirement on that where they can't have a passenger in
Can't
the
have a
vehicle.
passenger in the vehicle.
Yeah, for
Right, okay.
the first 6 months. We have seen a lot of kids being dropped off by their parents, which is obviously a good sign and for everybody, being dropped off by a parent.
Except for the parent that has to get up at 1 o'clock and pick them up.
I think we should do the obstacle course.
Kevin?
That could be a good solution to that.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin?
I just have a hard time, and I appreciate, what your dilemma is, but I have a hard time voting to approve anything temporary if we've got, department heads asking to look into it further. I think the other issue here, too, is that the building inspector has indicated certain things, and I have no reason to disbelieve you, but I would like to hear from him if he has been satisfied with your conversation. So I think in that respect, we're operating, in my opinion, in a vacuum, and I can understand entirely, your dilemma, but I think in the scheme of things, I just have a hard time going along with that until we've had the final reports from all the department
We
heads.
could also make that contingent upon the building
I don't-
inspector and the
yeah,
police chief.
I understand. I don't like contingent votes because what it does, it transfers the authority of the board and places it on the head of the department head. And then we're abrogating, in my opinion, our authority. And we're turning around and saying, we've got no problem with it as long as you don't have a problem. And I think it should be just the reverse. I think department head should be recommending to us, and then we make a decision based on that, not, in my opinion, it's the cart before the horse. But let the board vote and see what happens.
It does say here, just so the board understands it, the building inspector, if the license is approved, would make it obviously contingent upon his inspection and completion and approval of the work. So,
One question to your point, Kevin, though. Again, my feeling was, if there's any incidents that public safety, the police chief finds, can the police chief shut them down even though it's
I think
within
that
the
was,
15 days?
I think that was
which-
the spirit of Kenny's motion.
Yeah, that's what I thought, so,
No, go ahead, I mean, that's just my personal
I
feeling.
think
Yeah.
he could.
Go ahead and take it.
Okay. Do you want to limit the hours, Ken? Do you want to make that part of your motion and the
No.
days?
Yeah, 1 o'clock
Those 4 days, Friday,
Yep.
Saturday, Friday, Saturday,
till 1.
9 PM until 1 AM.
I think the intent was, 2 was just to get the employees out, get the, but, I mean, I'd like to see everybody vacated by 1 o'clock.
But you're talking, I mean, I still having a tough time, but you're talking 16-year-olds and, you know, I mean, again, I'm just looking at what has happened in the past, not just in Abington, but in high school dances, and that's, you know, I know you're running a different operation, and I wholeheartedly support good kids going to a good, clean venue like what you're proposing. I just would like, and I happen to feel the same as Kevin, that I'd really like to give them the time for good, thorough investigation, come back to this board, have our discussion, and go from there. But again, that's just my opinion. I have reservations about it.
Anybody else? We all understand the motion, right? It's contingent on public safety saying it's okay for these dances to be held.
And then fulfilling whatever requirements are required of public safety.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
3-2. So you understand what the deal is here?
Yes, sir.
4 nights, Friday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday.
Yes,
But you
sir.
need to sit down with the police chief. He has to be satisfied that everything is okay. Building inspector has to be satisfied that whatever
Yeah,
things he brought out in his report,
and that they have to be back here at the next meeting on
back
the
here at the next meeting.
22nd.
Which would be following that second Saturday, is that correct?
Correct.
Right, and just understand that the meeting will be at the high school because we have town meeting that night. So
Okay.
we're back over here.
Okay,
Okay.
absolutely.
And that's at, 6 o'clock, I think?
We'll set up the arrangements.
So you should probably coordinate with John as far as sitting down with the police chief.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Good luck.
Okay,
Thank you,
good luck.
gentlemen.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, action discussion items. Some minutes to be approved. I don't think the March 23rd meeting minutes were included in our package. I didn't see them, so. Did you see
Did you
them?
do them? That was the interview.
Right, I gave them to
Yeah.
Dory.
Oh,
Dory's gonna
okay.
do them, so I think we'll have to wait until she's on vacation, so I think we'll have to wait to get those back. March 25th, 2013, open session.
Move we approve?
Can I just ask one question? On the top of page 2, we took a vote for renewal of used article licenses. I thought there was a contingency there, because wasn't there one that wasn't, or maybe it's just, we had discussion as one of those places isn't in business anymore. But I mean,
Yeah.
we're going by, if you're attaching this to the motions, so I don't know if we just want to say
Taking out.
renewal of used article licenses.
Which was it? The old Abington Country Store, is that?
Yeah.
Did you get that, Nancy? The old Abington Country Store, I think it was contingent on them actually still being in operation, the issuance
Oh,
of a
they
license
are.
to them.
They are.
They are open?
Somebody was
They
cleaning up.
sent their paperwork
Oh.
back in.
Oh, they did, okay.
Good.
Okay, great, thanks. Anything else on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. March 28th, 2013, open session.
I have a couple things on this. Selectman Frey should be Franny.
That was close enough.
Selectman Doyle should be Coyle. And there was a revote to make it unanimous. It's not included in here.
Right, the vote was actually on, it was a vote 3 in favor of Rick LaFawn and 2 in favor of Grady Miller. And then I made a motion to make it a unanimous vote for Rick LaFawn, and I believe Mike seconded that, and that was unanimous, so.
I would make a motion with the changes, except you can leave Frey in there. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We have March 28th, 2013, executive session.
Move we approve?
Is there a second?
in hold, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Not to be released
Right.
until all matters are
Second that.
resolved. In a second, any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That's it for those, right? Now, we have item number 2, appointment to Board of Registrars, Jody Hurst.
I will move we appoint Jody Hurst to be one of the registrars.
Is this a temporary?
I think it would be a permanent.
It's a permanent, okay. So this is for a permanent spot on the board.
For a second.
In a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 3, vacancies on the Community Development Advisory Committee. John?
Mr. Chairman, we have two individuals who have applied for consideration. Lisa Emerson has requested appointment to the advisory committee, along with Linda Brundage. And today I received, and I passed out to the board, a third person who's interested, which is Ann Welsh. Ann Welsh.
And there's 3 spots, I believe, right?
That's correct.
Perfect. What's the pleasure, guys? Tom?
Question, John, I noticed one of the applicants was a real estate broker. Is that present any sort of conflicts of interest at all?
I don't think so. We can check with counsel, I think. We can make the appointment contingent on that, and we can check with counsel as to whether or not that would pose
Oh,
an
no, I
issue.
don't think we need to check with counsel, just
Yeah.
in general.
I don't think so. I know in some of my previous appointments to these advisory committees, we've had real estate agents on those review committees, those appeal committees. They're not deciding who's going to get what. All they're doing is making a decision on some sort of an appeal that comes before them.
So they're like arbiters, or basically, they decide on some sort of a disagreement, or?
Yeah, for example, if an individual needed to exceed the $35,000 limit, the committee would have to vote to allow that to happen. If there was a discrepancy or an issue with respect to a property that was under construction or reconstruction, and the homeowner filed, for some sort of a determination, it would go to that committee would review it and make that determination. So it's more like an appeals type, committee, right, versus a committee that's going to say, well, this house is going to get done, that house isn't going to get done. That determination is made by staff.
Anything else? You have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Lisa Emerson. We do it all in one?
You can if you want,
Yeah.
yeah.
Lisa Emerson, Linda Brundage, and Ian Welch to the vacancy on the Community Development Advisory Committee.
We have in a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 4, request for May 27th, 2013 Memorial Day Parade. John?
Well, our interim Veteran Service Officer, Bob Pratt, is basically putting the parade together. This is the Memorial Day Parade scheduled for May 27th. It's going to step off, as it usually does, from the Ralph Hamlin Lane area, and it's going to proceed up Washington Street, stopping at the Abington War Memorial, as we usually do, and then proceeding on down to Washington to Adams Street, turning right onto Pearl Street into the Mount Vernon Cemetery, and making its way to the veterans' graves and the GAR mound where services will be held. Very similar to what we've done in the past. This year it'll be without Joe Calantoni.
Any discussion, issues? We have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
In a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 5, discussion on last quarter revenues. John?
see one. Okay. If you would bear with me for a second here. If you look at the two-page sheet that has account number, description, original budget, revenue receipts, revenue balance, or year-to-date balance, and the percentage received. The way you read this is that a negative is a credit in revenue coming in. So you could see that in the motor vehicle excise area, we are still waiting on a sizable amount of money. That money will probably come in sometime towards the end of March. We do expect that we're going to meet our target at this point. The second is penalty and interest. We're looking at about $148,000 that we have received. We're looking at an outstanding balance year-to-date of $118,000. So that's how you read this. Our local miscellaneous revenues are up 172.27%, and that is because of two sizable revenue checks that the town had received, $203,924.28. And so that number, I think, is going to be very important to us carrying through to the end of the fiscal year. And that's why we're somewhat conservative on revenues going forward in the FY14 budget, because these are one-time revenues rather than reoccurring revenues. We haven't received any money from L&R in a while, and that money was really set aside for capital projects. So these types of revenues, which are going into the general fund that I am referring to under Selectmen miscellaneous revenue, is an amount of money that we don't expect to get next year. So when we fashion our FY14 budget, as we are in the process of doing with respect to revenues, we are not counting that revenue in FY14 because it's not going to be available. Inspections fees, zoning, filing, and all of those fees, we've collected 36%. That's lagging a little bit. We're probably not going to make the 64,373 number, but we are probably going to come somewhat close to that. Some of these revenue numbers that we are reporting now are as of March or February. April is obviously new to us, so we would need another couple of weeks before we get a more detailed number. We should be collecting roughly 75% of our revenue at this point. If you look down at liquor licenses and licenses and permits, we're at about where we should be, 71.03%. The next page, you look at meals excise tax. We have 139,970. We're expecting 180. Well, actually, we estimated 200,000, and we have a balance. I don't think that balance is correct. If we've collected 139 of the 200,000, we're short about 70 some odd thousand dollars, which we anticipate we're going to make in the last quarter of collections. So if I was to look at this and I go right down to the bottom as to where we are with respect to revenues, we're at about 73.56% of our revenues expended. We should be closer to 75. That 2% is obviously going to be made up with motor vehicle excise. We expect that to come in strong. What I would like to point out and compare is the next report, which is the expense control report, which is the larger report. If you look at the expense control report and you go to the last page, we have spent approximately 70.10% of our expenditures. We should be expending at about 75%. And if you look at our revenues to date at 73.56%, based on our expenditures to date, we're about 3.56% ahead on revenues to expenditures. That's not a bad position to be in at this point, but I do want to point that out.
Questions, anybody?
I just, so John, the first sheet, the revenue sheet, if you look at the original budget, each one of those, did you say you feel we're gonna hit those for year end, that we can use that in,
FY '14?
Yeah.
FY '14.
which ones are you concerned with, I guess, is the bigger question, like motor vehicle excise, you see
I'm not concerned about
1.6.
motor vehicle excise. I'm not concerned about, the only concern I have is with miscellaneous revenues and not overstating the one-time revenues that we've got in FY '13. We're not gonna get those next year. So this revenue number for local miscellaneous revenue is gonna be lower in FY '14 than what we currently have collected. So that is a concern. Inspection fees are a concern to me at this point in time. But if you look at what we have collected in Selectmen miscellaneous revenue, I think that, we're going to be fine at the end of the fiscal year. And that, incidentally, just to remind you, that money came in, we went after it because the bonding company that went bankrupt, and we were able to get $171,000, and then we got another check for $26,000. I was hoping it wouldn't stop, but, we got two revenue checks totaling $191,000. And what I would recommend is that, we be very careful in estimating FY '14. That's why we're looking at our revenues now, and I'll talk about that when we get to the '14 budget.
So just so I can make a note, the 203,924, where did that come from?
I'm sorry?
Under miscellaneous revenue. It
Yes.
says Selectmen miscellaneous revenue. You're saying that we've received this year $203,924.28.
Mhm.
Where did that come from?
That came from, what happened was that about 3 months ago, I received some notification that the surety company that owed the town of Abington $326,000. And the company it went bankrupt, the surety company. It was in regards to a sewer project that the town was compensated for. We ended up completing the work. So the money was never collected on the surety. So we've collected the money on the surety. I spoke with the sewer department. They said that they're all set, this money should go to the town. So that money, that $203,000, represents two checks from the liquidator for the surety company, $171,000 and about $26,000 or $29,000, coming up to the $203,924 number. But
So
you won't see
It's like a
that
builder's
next year.
bond, and whoever was supposed to do the work, the contractor failed to perform, and
That's correct.
now we're recouping the cost because we had to go and get the work
Correct.
done.
That's correct. Now, that project, I think, was 1997, 99, somewhere around there. I mean, if we didn't go after the money, we would have lost it, so.
And just tell me, on the meals tax, again, we had 200,000 budgeted. Do I read this, 130, this on page 2, the top?
Yeah,
We
139,
collected 139,000?
excuse, 139,970 has been received.
Okay, and what's the next column that says 182,581?
I have to check that out. I don't know what that represents.
Is that through the 9 months?
Yes, we have another, we're collecting about $60,000. So if we collect another 60, we'll be close to the 200,000.
So right now, we're at about 70% of where we think we're gonna end up.
But let me check that number and I'll get back to you on the 182. I don't understand why that number is there.
Any other questions on the revenue?
I think the format's pretty good. You get a good understanding as to where the major revenues are coming in.
Very good, thanks, John.
And the expense control report, I think, is, if we were expending at 75% and we had revenues at, 73, I'd be a little more concerned, but it's the flip of that.
Okay, item number 6, special town meeting warrant, selectmen's recommendations on the articles.
I have passed out to you a more updated sheet with the one change that we had made. It will be found on page 2, in Article 4.
Why don't we start, we'll just go through each one. Article 1 is transfer from Veterans Aid account number, whatever, to the sum of $49,5469, to the
Yes.
salary account number for the purposes of reimbursement of accumulated compensatory time to the estate of a former employee.
This is in accordance to the personnel bylaw.
Move we approve, recommend approval.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 2, transfer from available funds the sum of $120,031 from a number of accounts to pay Waste Solutions.
For the remainder of the fiscal year. And this is where we're taking the money from.
And all these departments have been notified and
That's right.
are in agreement?
Yeah, all
Okay.
all have been notified. And then, like the park mower and the line stripper, those two are warrant articles, capital that are being used.
I'll move we recommend approval.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to transfer $3,500 from the accounts listed to the fiscal year 2013 Selectmen expense line item.
We also have a sheet here, a graph that explains the selectmen expense line item.
Yep.
And where we ran over was in auditing, we under budgeted by $1,000. We corrected that in the FY14 budget. We are also going out to bid on auditing services, so maybe they'll sharpen their pencil a little bit, come down.
Move we recommend approval.
Is there a second? And a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Article number 4, see if the town will vote to transfer $20,000 from fire department salaries and $10,000 from fire department account number, you see that one, to the legal budget.
Yeah, that's a turnout gear.
That's what?
It's, the $10,000 is for the turnout gear,
Okay.
special equipment.
Yep.
I'll move we approve.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to transfer $30,000 from the accounts listed to the fiscal year 2013 town building line item.
You,
You have a breakdown that you provided
yeah, the
to us.
breakdown is light and ballast replacement. We hired an electrician to come in and review our lighting situation. Some of our lights in the outside weren't working. Now most of them are. The large numbers, we did the Board of Health wall. It was on the capital budget. We took it off with the understanding that we were going to do it under building maintenance and pay for it later. Custodial services was another $2,493. So when you add it all up, it's about $24,538.35. So this transfer would give us some additional money before the end of the fiscal year.
Move we recommend approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Kevin?
One question on, and we don't have to decide it tonight, but in the unlikely event that we don't get a quorum, perhaps we should see what we want to do in terms of, because I think we're getting into prom season, the special election, so I think the availability of the gym may or may not be available, so, and that's something, I mean, we're meeting on the 22nd before town meeting,
Yeah.
so.
Would you maybe check that out as far as what dates are open? Probably coordinate it with them.
Continuation dates after the
In
22nd.
the event we don't get a,
Unlikely event.
yeah.
Unlikely.
We can always put an article on it, it'll cause some controversy.
Has the finance committee
They're
taken their
meeting
votes yet?
Wednesday
They
night.
are.
I've given them this information, they've taken it into account, they asked some questions, I provided them with some additional information, so I will see them on Wednesday night.
Okay, great. Thank you. Item number 7, review and discussion of fiscal year 2014 draft budget.
If you could go to the budget estimate for FY14, the one-page sheet that we have here, we have made some additional cuts totaling $428,000. In addition to that, there's another $368,769. We had the deficit number was all over the place, and a lot of it is due contributing to the fact that we had snow and ice deficit of about $547,000. We're at about $1.113 million at the present time. Now, this also includes increasing our revenue numbers, local revenue numbers, by about $166,000. That'll bring us up to the actual FY13 local estimated receipt revenue numbers. So we haven't gone beyond that number at this point. I don't feel comfortable with doing that until we have a full accounting of where we stand with respect to motor vehicle excise. We figured that that number could change by about $100,000. We have not made that determination at this point. We also expect that the House is going to come out with their House budget probably within the next couple of weeks. If they do, it'll give us a better indication as to where the House is going, where the Senate would follow in relationship to additional local estimated receipts that we could, not local estimated receipts, but state aid that we could get. Needless to say, this is going to be a very difficult fiscal year to balance out. As I had indicated before, there are two, primary concerns. One is obviously the snow and ice deficit, and the other deals primarily with the $450,000 funding cliff that the schools have. When you add those two numbers up, you are pretty much at a balanced budget at this point. So I would imagine, and there's one other area of the budget that I have to look at very closely. When you look at it as it's proposed for FY14, and we've had some email discussions with the fire chief, there's about a $250,000 increase in salaries. I think that might be a little overstated. I don't know. We're going to meet with him when he comes back on the 15th. So there could be a swing there. But needless to say, to close this gap, it's going to be very difficult, without impacting the service level, which is something we want to avoid. In that vein, we're going to be looking for direction from the board as to what are the priorities that, if we have to reduce, first of all, do you want to reduce personnel? Second of all, if you don't, there are some other options that are available to us, none of which are too exciting from my perspective or from the finance team's perspective. But we expect to have a deficit that we can't close of about $800,000, we think.
Is that inclusive of the school? Are they, how do I want to say this? Are they at the, is this at their requested number, or is this their whittled down number?
The whittled down number.
The whittled down number.
Yeah, well, if you look here on the right-hand side, you will see that we're looking at removing those added positions that they are looking for.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Highway, police, and the fire gear. And that brings us, that reduces the deficit by $369,764.
So if we're at the 800,000 figure as far as a deficit,
And that's my estimate at this point in time. I don't know if that's going to hold true. I do know that it's probably not going to snow again, but my luck is that it'll probably snow next week, and we'll have another storm to deal with, and, that'll be the end of the projected deficit.
Yep.
But I just want I want to keep that in mind. On the 22nd, I'm going to offer some solutions to this deficit at that point in time, once we have better local estimated receipt numbers. But it's going to be very monumental for us to overcome, the $800,000 that I'm projecting at this point. Could be 7, but 7 or 8, it doesn't matter. It's a lot of money, and we cut a tremendous amount of money out of the budget in our previous meeting, where we looked at the expense portion. The logical progression of our budget format process has been that we do not want to lay off anyone if we can help it. That's our first primary concern. So what we did was we looked at expenditures. We're now looking at proposed positions. So we're not looking at an increase in positions, we're looking at a level service type budget. The school's level service budget is where we are at right now. We're also proposing, and the school committee has not voted, so I don't know how they're going to feel about that, but we need to cut those numbers back. I think we can get to a balanced budget, but I don't think it's going to be easy.
Questions, comments? Tom?
I have a question for the board, and the question is, and this goes back to last year, and I think the policy of the board. When it comes time to cut, does the board have a policy that 64% of those cuts are applied to the schools and the other 36 are applied to the other side? How's that work?
The cuts, I don't know if the board has
I
a
don't think
policy.
the boards ever, not that, to my knowledge, I don't think we adopted a policy on making cuts, that's how they are enacted, but.
It was 66-34.
Yeah.
The way that came about, and this was before my time, actually, was we added up the actual proportional amount of the school budget to the town budget. When you take into account all the expenditures for school versus all the expenditures for town, you came up to about 66-34. We have provided you with some actual splits as to where we are right now with respect to the portion of the budget that is school versus a portion of the budget that is town. And those numbers, I think, need to be discussed. The percentages need to be discussed with, the superintendent. But if the board, sets a policy that it's going to, that they want to do 66-34, or they want us to balance the budget without laying people off, those are the types of things that we will.
So you never applied those percentages when you.
Well, I will say this, I think back when I first got on the board 5 years ago, we were running into some very difficult financial times. I think at that point in time, the administration at that point in time said this is how we ought to do the cuts. And I think that's how they were enacted. Obviously, the town meeting is the one who makes the ultimate decision, but.
So right now, cuts are based on priorities,
We haven't gotten to the percentage splits yet.
okay.
No.
Okay.
And from the town side, we've cut a sizable amount, in the expenditure portion of the budget. When you start going, and you start, for lack of a better term, you start reducing 5,000 here, 2,000 there, you're nickel and diming the departments, but when you get to the bottom line, it's $300,000 or $400,000. It's a decent amount of money, and we've done that. We've gotten to that point. And we'll continue to work on this budget and get it down to as manageable a budget as we can.
But you're going to present us a firmer budget at the April 22nd meeting, right?
That's correct.
Any other discussion? Questions? No. Okay. Item number 8, town manager report.
I don't have much, actually. I think that,
Thank you.
I think I'd be quiet. I'm not going to say anything.
Very good, okay.
All set?
Moving
Yeah.
on.
Okay. Item number 9, public comment. There is no public to comment, so.
I can get up and make a comment.
I am sure you can. So, final is the executive session, which is
Can I just ask a question on the next meeting? It's
Yes.
April 22nd, which
pri-
is, a s-
prior to the,
okay, and that will be around 6 o'clock, something like that?
usually at 6
Yeah,
generally.
usually at 6.
Okay, thank you.
Just so everyone knows, the special town meeting warrant is posted on the website, so anyone can download it. It's 2 pages. If you want copies of it, call the town hall. You should have received your notification. Did you folks receive notification? Okay. Yep. So we're
Yeah, it-
well in advance of our notification
job.
requirements. It's a lot easier.
Okay, so we need or looking for a motion to enter into executive session.
Just one question. Should we allow us to reconvene in the event we have something to do?
Yeah, I think that
All
would
right.
be a good
All right, I'll make a motion that we enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation involving the town manager's contract, as an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the board, and also to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically Richard LaFawn, the prospective town manager, and that we will convene. Will reconvene
In open session.
in open session.
A second.
A second, any discussion? If not, by roll call. Tom?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Yes.
I vote yes. Thank you.